What's up, everybody? It's Mr. Second Passport. Today we're going to look at 5 beaches you should just leave off or skip from your beachfront property hunting itinerary if that's what you're looking for here in Ecuador. Now, let's be precise. Let's be clear. There's the beaches I'm going to mention today, you know, all I'm talking about is frontline beach, truly beachfront real estate. And almost anywhere in Ecuador, 1, 2, 3 blocks back, you can find cheap property for sale if you're okay being near the beach but not right on it. Um, but there's drawbacks to that. One being, that nice ocean breeze that you have being right on the beach. You don't really get that 1, 2, 3 blocks back. I don't know. It just kind of disperses once it hits that front line of properties. Another thing to keep, so it's going to be hot, more humid. You're going to have to run the AC more, meaning you're going to have to pay more in electricity, and it's just all these things, and it's just you won't have the nice view and this and that and the other thing. So today we're just going to talk about beachfront, front line of the ocean real estate, and 5 places where you're too late. You're too late even if you wanted it. Maybe you're, in some cases, you're 5 years too late. In some cases, you're a decade or even 2 decades too late. But we're going to talk about it today. But thankfully, there are a lot of beaches in Ecuador where you're not too late. And I'll mention one if you stick around till the end of this video. That I'm going to show you a deal in our next video here in a couple days. But today I'll mention the beach itself as a great place for you to start your search for cheap beachfront property in Ecuador. And by cheap, I mean a few $1,000 maybe. If you ever had wanted a dream beach house in South America, this might be the place for you. So let's take a quick look. Right now, here we are today we're going to primarily talk about the south coast of Ecuador, meaning this is the whole coast of Ecuador. We're going to talk about just the area south of Manta on down to about the Salinas area. Now let's just browse over the Salinas Peninsula a little bit because it's real popular with expats. Well, Salinas is high-rise central. It's a bunch of high-rises. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, being right on the beach with an ocean view, then it might be for you. If not, then probably not, right? Here on the south end of the peninsula, there's this area called Punta Carnero. It's got this nasty, beach break. So it's not even really good for surfing, and it's definitely not good for swimming. It's got most of the time a nasty riptide. I've never been there when it didn't have it like a nasty riptide going on, right? So even if you did find something on this beachhead, I would maybe suggest against it when it comes to Punta Carnero, right? Now when you get down towards Anconcito here, once I went there to talk to a property seller who was selling a property up north on the coast, and the beach is super towny, like super kind of just dirt roads, tumbleweeds blowing in the wind, no tourists, definitely no foreigners kind of thing. Fishing village, it's a little poor fishing village, Anconcito here. So probably not something you'd want to consider. La Libertad, while it may look like it has beach, you should just skip it if you're looking for beachfront property because there's just not much beachfront property. They have a little tiny Malecon boardwalk here, and it's all built up, and there's just nothing there. But it didn't make the list today. Our first beach that you should just skip, right, when it comes to your beachfront hunting, cheap beachfront property hunting itinerary here in Ecuador is BALLENITA. BALLENITA. Really, you're about a decade too late when it comes to BALLENITA here entering 2021. A lot of rich Guayacos or Guayaquil people from the big city of Guayaquil nearby, Ecuadorians, have kind of bought up this beach, and it's an interesting little beach. But I'm personally not a fan because you don't see, like in these pictures on Google, the beach looks pretty decent and pretty nice, and it has this nice little lip on here, right? So you have a nice uplifted view of the ocean and all. But there's just what you don't see here, and sometimes pictures lie, is that there's just a ton, dozens and dozens of oil tankers or gas tankers, cargo ships docked right off the beach. It's a weird sight. The only other place in the world I've seen it is Singapore. And I remember walking the beach in Singapore with the girl I just met. And literally, we had to pick with a stick the tar off the bottoms of our feet for like a half hour after walking on that beach in Singapore. This is, I guess, little invisible tar balls from all the ships docked or whatever had floated up onto the beach, and we didn't know as tourists, and you know that's kind of what BALLENITA reminds me of. I hope it's not that bad, and it's not, but it might get to that point. So anyway, BALLENITA is one place where it's all bought up. This whole little beachhead here, the beachfront is bought up. You can buy really cheap stuff 1, 2, 3 blocks back, but is it really? I mean, is it really a place you want to live? 1, 2, 3 blocks back in BALLENITA, there's really nothing there, and I would say probably for most people, no. Next stop on our walk of shame is AYAMPE, about 20 minutes up the coast. This is one beach. It's a little cove, and it's nice to visit, and it actually has some scuba diving, one of the few places on the Ecuador coast that you can actually scuba dive a little bit. It's a little fishing village, impoverished fishing village. It's not as nice as these pictures would suggest. Sometimes pictures lie. And it's this little tiny cove with a little line of beachfront property on it, as you can see here. But it's been all bought up by Guayacos, Guayaquil, Ecuadorian people for a long time now. So unless you saw something advertised online, I would just skip this town if time is of the essence. And if you could find something really cheap 1, 2, 3 blocks back, but trust me, AYAMPE is probably not a place you'd want to live 1, 2, 3 blocks back off the ocean. If you visited, you'd see what I mean. Beach number 3 I grouped together. It's actually 2 towns for the price of 1 that you should just skip if you're on a cheap beachfront property itinerary, and that is Olón and Montañita. They're right next to each other. Beautiful little towns. Totally different. Montañita is a little party town, surf town, where a lot of younger hippies kind of hang out, and it's really fun to visit. For most people, probably not live. You really have to be into that kind of lifestyle, sex, drugs, and rock and roll type of thing. But the beachfront has been bought up on both sides of the town for a really long time, like 5, 7 years probably since the town really blew up in the 2010s, since I moved here. Now, when I first moved here, I did find a house right in the center of town, right on the front of the beach, and the seller was from Guayaquil. I sat down with him in his house in Guayaquil, and he was selling it for 50 grand because he needed a tractor that cost 50 grand, and that's why he was selling it. And I didn't have the money then, and I let it slip by me, and now that someone else bought it up, built a hotel on there, and enough said. There's just no available inexpensive beachfront property. You can find stuff block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks back. And right next door, Olón, is this little tiny town with not much beach at all, not much beachfront. It has a beautiful wide beach, very Southern Californian-esque, with nice green cliffs behind it. And a lot of expats like it, especially the Oloncito area. But it's all been bought up, passed over, as a friend of mine said, as he describes North American real estate. It's all been passed over long ago, about a decade ago. So finding beachfront in Olón, especially inexpensive beachfront, there's just not much to begin with, and it's highly unlikely. So you can probably even just skip it. All these little towns here, just north of Olón: Curia, San Jose, La Núñez, La Entrada, and finally La Rinconada. All of these are little interesting towns that you might think might have something here on this beachhead, but really, as you can tell, I know the area pretty well, and it's been bought up 5, 10, 15 years ago. Again, mainly by wealthier Guayaquil people. Not so much foreigners, but some foreigners have bought into. But the chances of finding something inexpensive right on the beach in this area, on this beachhead, all the way to La Rinconada is very, very slim, very slim. But those other little beaches didn't, they're not even really towns, just little kind of outposts. But they didn't make the list, right? The next beach, the next beach on our walk of shame here, number 4, is AYAMPE. Now I remember when I first got to Ecuador about 6, 7 years ago, I stayed at this American couples inn. I believe it's called the Buena Vida in AYAMPE, and I spoke very briefly. I don't think he even remembers, to the owner, who is an ex model, and he, he's a surfer, and he said, if the place ever got built up, he would just leave. And in my opinion, the place hasn't got built up, but it's got all bought out since I was there about 7 years ago. There's not much beachfront to begin with. It's a great little place to surf, but there's not much beachfront property available. And the little that was has been bought up over the last 7 years, and it's all gone. The inexpensive beachfront property. So I mean, this is one little beach that you could probably just skip from your beachfront itinerary, hunting itinerary. There's just nothing there, and if you do find something, it's probably super expensive, and it's just not worth the price to buy into a place like this, because it is kind of backwater, if you know what I mean. And like, the streets get really muddy and nasty when it rains, which is like several months of the year. And I don't know. I would just skip it if you're looking for cheap beachfront property. Continuing on our walk of shame, the 5th place you should just completely skip if you're looking for cheap beachfront property is Puerto Lopez, a very popular whale watching spot. It's a bigger cove, not quite as small as Ayangue. And if you did get confused, it's Ayangue was one of our choices today, and AYAMPE is another one. So very close names, but different places nonetheless. Puerto Lopez here, as you can see in this photo, you might be able to find, like I showed a couple weeks ago in a previous video. There's really cheap land for a few $1,000s a pop on these mountains back here behind the beach. It gives you really nice ocean views. But beachfront, this town has been bought up, the beachfront, a long time ago, over a decade, 2 decades ago. Most of it's all gone. That beachfront property, just built up with little dinky hotels and restaurants and things of that sort. So it's not really a place to get beachfront, for sure. Now, the rest of these beaches here, some places are harder to find cheap beachfront than others, but you can find it, right, if you look. But the one place I'm going to mention that's completely been off the charts, off the map, never mentioned before in expat publications and things of that sort, is way up here north of Pedernales, this little beachhead capped with this town of Cojimes. That's it. This whole beachhead here, just north of Pedernales, on your way up to Cojimes, is an excellent spot to search for cheap beachfront property. And I'm going to show you an example with pictures and everything coming up here in our next video. So in a couple days here. So check it out, Cojimes. That's my little gift to you for sticking around for this whole video. Anyway, take care. Those are five beaches in Ecuador that I would skip on my cheap beachfront property hunting itinerary. Take care.